Ngowi TV, informed economists and business perspective.
Allow me to go straight to my presentation, but I should recognize the presence of Dr. Jimmy and Dr. Irene, my colleagues, to talk about future skills. And the broad picture is we are having what we call fundamental changes in the world of work, in the labor market, brought about by change in technology mainly. And this change is mainly driven by digitalization, where we are seeing almost everything going digital, and it has a lot of implication in almost everything we do. And the foundation here is the fourth industrial revolution. So I won't really go into detail in everything, but then we could see FIR for fourth industrial revolution is one of those key issues of discussion today, almost everywhere. This is one of the major topics, and I think it had huge discussion, the World Economic Forum in Davos 2016. From there, I think it has held a lot of traction. And the key issue is technology and technical changes, and then implication of these changes in virtually all sectors of life, in all sectors of the economy, and in the world of work in this context here. So what is happening is we are seeing this technology, and mainly digital technology, doing what we call disruption. And it does not need necessarily be negative, because sometimes when we talk about disruptive technologies, people thought it's negative. It's not always negative, actually. So we are seeing everything changing. We are seeing organizations changing. We are seeing business models changing. And for sure, our jobs will change. The labor market will change. The skill sets that are needed for the labor market today and in the future are also changing. This is the broader context. Maybe to expound on this, people have been thinking that what will need to change is, when it comes to skills for the future, people are focused on the skills of employees, people's skills. They forget that actually the future skills is also very relevant to organizations. People always tend to think the skills that will be needed in the future have nothing to do with my organization, but they have to do with my staff. It's wrong. It's wrong, because if your organization is not future ready, if it does not have the skills that are needed for a future organization, you cannot, survive. You cannot survive. And fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, the future we are talking about is today. This future is always in the present. If you have to talk to people like Ambassador Mpungwe will tell you, when it comes to changes in the world of work, for example, things have never been so fast. The changes have never been so fast, yet they will never be so slow. Since the changes that we are seeing today, after the fourth industrial revolution started, we have seen what we call fundamental changes. We are seeing what we call epoch change. It's a change of epochs, actually. It's changing very rapidly. It's very, very rapid. If you are to use Latin, I forgot also to say, I also speak some Latin. We'll call it metanoia. Metanoia, total change. It's a total change that we are seeing. It's not a stage-by-stage change. We are seeing business models changing. And I'll use business models that we see here. Today, I don't need to own buildings in order to run real estate business, for example. With some technologies, with these business models, for example, one can run a real estate company without having a single building, for example. With things like apps that we are seeing around, I don't need to have tracks of vehicles in order to run a taxi company. With Uber, with Taxify, we see those kind of things. So we are seeing what we call unprecedented and exponential changes. That is changes that are taking place very quickly. Now the key question that I'm posing here, I might not have answers to all the questions, but the question is, are we ready to cope in terms of skills? Are we ready to cope in terms of skills with all the changes that are taking place? Because what's the point? The point is, if the world is changing and we are not changing, if you don't have the skills to cope with what the future requires us to have, will be left behind as individuals and as institutions. As individuals and as institutions. So that will be really the focus here. In terms of skills, are we ready to change? So I'm skipping really quite a number of issues here, but talking about the fourth industrial revolution, we know there have been three earlier revolutions. First we had the use of water and steam as a source of energy, and then we came to use of electricity, electronics, and now the IT, the fourth industrial revolution now. Now what's the point here? What we are seeing here is technology being the driver of the changes in this fourth industrial revolution. What differentiates the fourth industrial revolution with the other three is technology. And here is mainly digital technology, where everything is going digital actually. And yes, we have seen technology ever since, but what we are seeing now is the fusion of these technologies being brought together in such a way that we are unable to recognize what existed before the fourth industrial revolution. We are seeing the physical world, digital world, and biological spheres coming together. Later, when I give some examples, I think you will see exactly what we are seeing here. Now, what is happening is this I call disruption, changes. Technology is changing exactly the way we work. Actually. It's only for convenience that we are meeting here physically. Technology has removed the need of having, brick and mortar halls like this one. We could make our presentation at the midst of our homes. Some of my students, I see some here, I do lecture them, whether I'm in Nairobi, whether I'm in Canada, wherever I am, and at the comfort of their home. Technology has made this quite possible. So this is the thing that we are talking about here. So this transformation now is changing everything, including jobs. I'll only zero into the things that are of relevance here. The kind of jobs that we used to do in the early days have changed a lot. So it is changing the way people live, the way people work. Now, when the way we work has changed, also the skills that will be needed will change. We'll be needing more and more of digital skills, for example. Banks, for example, I've been telling my friends in the bank, I sit in the board of one of the banks around, Equity Bank. It's not a time to build what I call brick and mortar branches. The world is digital. People are banking on their cell phones, So skills of your banker of today will be quite different from the skills of a banker of some even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. The world is really changing. So here, there is again a call for new skill sets. That is exactly what we are talking about here. Are we future ready in terms of skills? The skill sets that we are having as an individual and the skill set that we are having as a company, are they still relevant in the changing world? My friends in the security company, in the security industry, and I see one of my students there. Gone are those days when our askaris will be physical people as such actually. Gone are the days that we're going to provide security with a gun and a bomb, for example. We see a lot of, later when I come to some technologies here, sensors can be used to secure us, actually. So, as I told you, I was in Beijing, actually, yesterday, and I visited one company. It's selling, cranes, cranes for construction sites. And what they're saying, they can send the crane here, or wherever in Africa, wherever in the world, and they can operate it from Beijing. That is the digital technology. They don't need to come here physically. So it just say, okay, lift those 2 tons of cement to the 5th floor. And it lifts, It's a question of digitalization. So what we are saying is, when the world has changed so much, for sure, our skills and skill sets in our organizations will also have to change. So I'll skip real quick a number of things here and talk a little bit about labor market. So all the changes that we are seeing have a lot of implication in terms of labor market and labor market skills that we need. For example, here we are talking about Internet of Things, and the Internet of Things, that's where everything else is connected to everything else. Where your laptop connected to your vehicle, connected to your house, connected to your everything else. And I think some of you are seeing and have started using those stuff, artificial intelligence, issues of machine learning. where capital, machinery, is going to displace labor. My student, I taught them production economics, and there is this popular question always will come, capital versus labor-intensive mode of production, where we are saying under artificial intelligence, a lot of jobs now will be done by machine. So the question is, the skill set that we are having today, are they still relevant in the future? With the technology, with the artificial intelligence, with the machines doing works that human beings used to do, a lot of skills are going to be laid redundant. Repetitive jobs, you know, those jobs that I don't need to, you know, I don't need a high brain that is very repetitive that I can do, that almost everybody else can do, will be redundant, you know. So the question is now, are we having skills that will be needed in the future? Are we, and this is a question that I pose when I'm challenging myself as a trainer and some of us who are training. Are we training the labor force for the skills of the future, you know? So those are part of issues that we are discussing here. You can see the fourth industrial revolution is introducing what I call new systems, new structures, products, and business models in all sectors. And I'll focus a little bit on business models, because it is the business model that will tell me whether to employ or not to employ. It is the business model that will tell me what kind of skills that will be needed. So the business model of the future are the ones that are making us to pause a little bit and say, are we ready, future ready in terms of skills for the business models of the future? For example, here, for example, we are seeing, to use this example of Uber and Taxify in the transportation industry. Yeah, you could see, and I think most of you will know taxi drivers, the traditional taxi drivers who are not digital. You know, you cannot operate in this business model, Uber, Taxify, if you don't have digital skills. It's as simple as that, you know. Airbnb, this is what I was saying. You know, I don't need to own buildings in order to run, let's say, accommodation and real estate business. With Airbnb as a business model, really, I can accommodate everywhere. You know, we have our houses in the villages, you have houses, whatever. If you do Airbnb as a business model, someone in the US, in China, in India, can know that my home in my village, Moshi, has 2 rooms that are vacant at any point in time, and I can accommodate them through Airbnb. You know, those kind of, this is the kind of business model that we are talking. We are seeing now cryptos, meaning cryptocurrencies, for example, bitcoins, for example. Now the latest, I think the latest in town is Libra by Facebook. Now, there's a new business models in financial, you know, in the world of finance. Now the question is, if our skills we are to physical money, are we future ready in terms of skills that are needed to handle the finances of the future market? A place like China today, you hardly hold the cash as such. You hardly hold the cash. You know, with we talk, here we use more for WhatsApp. They talk more of WeChat. Really, every transaction is digital. Now the question is, do we have those skills to cope with this labor market, you know? So we are talking about digital marketplaces, digital wallets, and digital platforms, which will need new skill sets than the ones that we are used to. Now, we are seeing that the fourth industrial revolution is disrupting what we call normalcy and comfort zones. If we thought that we have all the skills we needed, if we thought that now we are comfortable, I have acquired all the skills, I'm okay, let's think twice. Because with the technologies that are coming, the skills that we are having today, however complicated we think they will be laid redundant if we do not update them.